From points all around the metro, it is time for an OU update. It's a snow day edition, everybody. I'm Jenny Carlson here at my humble abode, joined by two others, homebound by all this bad weather, OU beat writer Ryan Aber and fellow columnist Barry Trammell. Even though we are iced in, snowed in, whatever in the heck's happening in your neighborhood, we thought we'd talk some Oklahoma basketball. And Ryan, let's start with you because right now, obviously, everybody knows that Oklahoma's in the midst of a slide, 6-game losing streak, lost 9 of 11, and now the question of NCAA tournament viability comes into play. What do you have to say to people who are worried about that right now?
Well, for the last couple of weeks, I've been saying, don't worry too much about it. They'll be okay. Now it's time to worry. They really have to win 2 out of these last 3 games in the regular season. They've got Kansas State at home on Saturday, and Kansas State's playing really well right now. They have to go to Baylor. Baylor's playing really well right now, and then they end the season against Iowa State, who's 10th in the Big 12, a team that they lost to in Ames. So it may be time to start letting that panic set in. But Oklahoma really needs to win 2 out of these last 3 to feel secure about their NCAA tournament hopes. If they win 1, they could get in, but I wouldn't count on it.
Barry, all this talk didn't so long ago seem to be a little bit crazy. I mean, when the alarm bells started to go off in some people's heads, I remember thinking, that just seems really far-fetched. I mean, this is a team that played so well in the non-conference, had some good wins at home in the conference. But since then, it's only continued to spiral down. Give us a 1 to 10 panic scale. Where are you, Barry?
Panic never helps, so I would never panic. It's actually sort of a relief for this reason. I think Bobby Heber's right. They got to win 2 out of 3, but they've hit the easy part of their schedule. If they don't win 2 out of 3, why would you want to go to the NCAA tournament? You're going to get your doors blown off. If they lose 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3, I mean, it just shows what we've seen for these last 3 weeks, this 6-game losing streak. This is not a very good basketball team. And if you're not a very good basketball team, you go to the NCAA tournament, you're going to get waxed. So they got a chance to turn it around, but they got to win. You're playing 3 winnable games. Kansas State at home. Kansas State's a very good team. They're 9-6 in the Big 12 for crying out loud, but you should be able to win a home game against them. You go to Baylor. Baylor's playing better, but Baylor got blasted in Waco by West Virginia the other night. And then Iowa State's playing at home against Iowa State is the easiest assignment you can get. So the Sooners have nobody to blame but themselves if they don't get this done.
Yeah, very true. Again, 2 or 3 at home, a couple of winnable home games, and a possible winnable road game, even for a team that has struggled on the road. But Ryan, we're going to spend this segment sort of trying to trying to analyze what has happened to get the Sooners to this position. As has been the case all season, we have to start with Trae Young because so much of how this team has gone is how he has gone. And, I think we've talked week in and week out about his impact on things. He's struggling to shoot right now. Obviously, defenses are approaching him in a variety of ways. But what if you could diagnose, you've seen Trae Young as much as anybody. If you could diagnose and say, if he could just turn around one thing, it might turn everything around. What would it be in your mind?
Well, I think it's as simple as hitting some shots, and especially the outside shots. I mean, his ability to hit those 3-pointers and stretch out defenses was so much of why Oklahoma was so successful early in the season. If he's able to get a few shots, he doesn't have to shoot the 45, 50% that he was early in the season. But if he's able to hit just a few of those shots in a game, it changes the way defenses have to approach the Sooners, and it opens other things up on the floor. But he's also got to be more aggressive getting to the bucket. Azubuike the other night from Kansas was coming out to the free throw line and flashing out there, and it really stopped Young from being aggressive toward the bucket. Only got to the free throw line 4 times. So he's got to do one of those things in order to be really effective. And certainly the Sooners would be much better off if he was able to do both of them.
Barry, Trae Young's game is so much built around fearlessness. I mean, fearlessness with where he shoots from, fearlessness with where he dribbles into, fearlessness with, how he passes the ball. Has that been damaged? Are you, as a player, is he going to be able to get that back, or does he have to just continue with that reckless abandon to maybe get back on track and get this team back on track?
No, I mean, I don't think it can continue. I think he's scaled back on it. That might be some of the problem, is that he's had to sort of curtail himself in. It's a the truth is, it's a mystery. I mean, Bobby Hebert talked about stretching the defense. Trae Young stretched the defense. Well, he did stretch the defense, and it stayed stretched. That's how people are defending Trae Young. They're stretched out, and yet the holes in the defense are not becoming apparent with other guys at mid-range or even in the corners for threes or inside. Those elements have sort of withered also in this OU offense. So it's a mystery. Trae Young's decision-making has been better. It's gotten better in the last three games, I think. He's not forcing as much, but that's not led to more baskets for this team. And it's just, the truth is, remember, we went through a stretch where we said, well, everybody else has got to play better. And then we said, Trae's got to play better. The truth is, everybody's got to play better. This is an all-hands-on-deck problem. Everybody has struggled. Everybody's to blame for the 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, and that brings us to our next point. And Ryan, you saw this on Monday night up there in Kansas. Barry talking about everybody has to have a hand in trying to get this fixed. Lon Kruger tried to stir the pot a little bit and maybe find a magic potion by mixing up his starting lineup. He's not a guy that does that a ton. We've seen him stay pretty consistent with starting lineups, but did you feel like there were some reasons to think it was a good adjustment? Is this something we're going to continue to see, or was this just a one-off that now after a 30-point loss to Kansas, Oklahoma goes back to what it had been doing before?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, I think the insertion of Jamoni McNeese for Kadeem Latin, I think that did pay off a little bit. They struggled inside defensively, really with both guys. But McNeese is able to add a punch of offense there that they weren't getting. Now, Cam McGusty had a really good game offensive-wise, scored a lot of points for them. But the trade-off of that, the fact that you don't have Rashard Odoms on the floor, at least to start, was really apparent on the defensive end. The Sooners struggled defensively throughout the game, but without Odoms, who's your best defender by far, that gets magnified. And I think certainly against Kansas we saw it, and I think it's going to be really important for Oklahoma to defend well here over these next 3 games and moving forward.
Barry, you give that lineup change a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or is it an incomplete grade in your mind?
Well, I salute Lon for trying something. It didn't work. To start the first half, it was a disaster. They got down 18-4,
yeah,
something. I don't know what happened. What it was.
10-0 and 22 to
yeah, it's crazy.
Something.
Got bad start. Now in the second half, they got off to a much better start. They cut a 10-point deficit down to 7 and playing pretty good. But I didn't mind it. I generally don't want to see Rashard Odoms off the floor. He's their best defender on a bad defensive team. And he didn't play, I think he played 15 minutes, 17 minutes, whatever it was. I think you saw that with the Kansas shooting percentages. The Jayhawks go over 60% in the first half. They go over 60% in the second half. And you can't win games. You can't compete in games playing defense like that. So I would like to see Odoms play more. I thought it was great that McGusty got going. That's a wonderful thing. But I don't know that, that McGusty and Odoms need to, take each other's minutes away from Odom. I think Odoms has to be on the floor for this team.
Yeah, 12 minutes for Rashard Odoms.
Oh my goodness!
Not much at all. And it was 23-8 was the Kansas start.
So yeah, you can't. That's just awful. So it's a case of the Sooner lineup. Latin and McNeese have been interchangeable this year. There's been times when McNeese played better, when Latin played better. I didn't have a problem with that. Doolittle and Manick. Manick's clearly not contributing a lot, but boy, benching Rashard Odoms. Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, and guys, talking about the change Latin for McNeese, I think Jamoni McNeese has more than shown that, he deserves some time on the floor. But it's kind of surprising to me that we haven't seen Kadeem Latin have the evolution that I sort of thought he would have by this time in his career, Ryan. I mean, I was looking back at some stuff about Buddy Hield earlier today and was sort of reminded about just how fantastic Kadeem Latin was a couple years ago. I really thought the ceiling was pretty high on him. We just haven't seen him evolve, sort of continue that trajectory that it looked like he might have. Is that one of those, talking about mysteries of the season, is that kind of one of those things that you would chalk up to that?
Yeah, it really is. He just sort of flatlined really after his sophomore year. Hasn't been those big steps in improvement that I think a lot of us thought. His offensive game is really stalled out on defense. He gets a lot of blocks, but at times sort of sells out to get the blocks, and it hurts him on some other ways on that defensive end. And it has been a surprise because I think a lot of us thought when Kadeem Latin played significantly as a freshman and then started the next year that would be a spot where Oklahoma would be set for several years. And he started every game until last Monday, but there hasn't been the consistency of play that I think a lot of people expected, me included.
Hey, Barry, one other guy that I think you mentioned a little bit ago, Brady Manick, and his struggles. There were times watching that Kansas game, I almost forgot Brady Manick was a Sooner. And, I know that he has struggled and maybe they're trying to minimize him, but he was so important early on. Maybe he's experiencing some of that freshman wall that Trae Young seems to be experiencing, but his loss of production has been huge in my mind.
Yeah, you remember early in the year how good of a shooter he was, just filling it up and really being an outlet for Trae Young. Well, Brady Manick's percentage, he's down to let me look. He's down to 38.7% from 3-point range, which he was up into the high 40s as we reached the Big 12. So if they can get Brady going again, that's going to release as much as anything about this offense. Christian James played terrible at Kansas, but he'd actually been playing pretty good. He's a lot more consistent than Manick has been. If they could get Manick going again, that's probably the number one key to this offense, is if Brady Manick could start hitting shots. That would open up things for Trae Young. That would relieve pressure a lot of places. That's probably the number one priority in trying to fix this offense.
Yeah, and it wasn't just those. Sorry, Jenny.
No, it's all right.
It wasn't just those drive and kick corner threes and things like that made Brady Manick such a force offensively for this team. It was also the baseline cuts, the drive and just sort of dish it out to the opposite side that became such a big weapon for Trae Young and Brady Manick early, the alley-oops, the things like that. And those have gone away too as Brady Manick's effectiveness overall has dipped here late in the season.
Guys, before we talk about these last three games a little more in depth and get on out of here, Ryan, how have you sensed Oklahoma approaching this, players and coaches? I mean, they obviously know what's happened. They know the 6 losses in a row. They know the 9 out of 11 that have been losses for them. They realize, that the pressure is really on. Are you seeing them, really down? Are they seemingly energized by the possibility of knowing where their NCAA tournament hopes sit? I mean, what's the psyche and mentality of this group right now?
Well, the guys I've talked to are sort of almost defiant, and they're saying this is going to turn around. This is going to get better. It will happen. But they've been saying those same things for a couple of weeks now, and it just hasn't happened. They got to start showing it on the floor. But it seems like when you look at them in practice, when you talk to them after these games, after these losses, they're saying the right things, but that action has to come pretty quickly.
Barry, if you're in Lon Kruger's shoes, what do you do as the coach of this team to try to get them in the right mindset? I mean, as we've talked, it's a lot about making shots. It's a lot about playing defense, things that are very physical on the floor. But if you're in that coaching seat, what do you say to your guys? And Lon Kruger, this is a guy that never seems too high, too low. Do you do something different if you're in his shoes?
Well, I mean, to me, He's not going to do a lot because he is Lon Kruger and he knows what's work, and he is a sort of an even-keeled guy. What he did at Kansas to me was I would classify as massive experimentation. He changed out 60% of the starting lineup. I mean, when do you see that? I haven't seen that in forever. So it didn't really work. I don't know if he tries different lineup. I don't know if he sticks with this one. I don't know what he does. Whatever he can do to get Trae Young freed up. Now, you know, I don't claim to be a basketball technician to the point where I know what to do, but that's what he's got to do, because when Trae Young was dominating and playing freely and in the flow, this team was really hard to deal with, and that's not happening now. And it's a case of you know, the defenses are frustrating Trae from 47 feet out. You know, there's not any more open 28-footers. There's not any more picking him up, you know, near the top of the key. He's getting not just a great defender on him when he crosses the half-court line, but almost all the time, here comes another guy ready to double team, ready to trap, ready to hedge against a potential screen. There's just a constant extra man attention on Trae Young. And until the Sooners make teams pay for that, things aren't going to change.
Well, we got to answer to the question of will anything change on Saturday afternoon. It's a 5 o'clock tip in Lloyd Noble Center, Ryan, and K-State comes to town. Oklahoma's always struggled with K-State at K-State, it seems like, under Lon Kruger, which being his alma mater, I don't know what that's all about, but lots of years we've seen them lose in Manhattan like they have already this year. They've won, and sometimes fairly easily, in Norman. What is key in your mind on Saturday to get off this losing streak that Oklahoma's on right now?
Well, yeah, Oklahoma won this game last year at Lloyd Noble Center by 30, and that was a team that was just you know, really bad overall. I think they broke a long losing streak with that win. So, but it's a combination of everything we've talked about. They need Trae Young to get going a little bit. They need those other guys, especially Brady Manick and Christian James, to hit some shots. And they need to play better defense overall. I think if they're able to do a little bit of each of those things, then they're going to be okay. They're going to win 2 out of the last 3 at least and get in the tournament. They're going to win on Saturday. But if they don't do a little bit of those things, then it could be an even more disastrous finish than it has been.
Barry, you know, Oklahoma's gotten off to some rough starts here recently. I mean, obviously the Kansas rough start was the roughest of them all. Is a good start on Saturday almost mandatory for Oklahoma? It seems like, you know, mentally they could be pretty fragile right now if K-State comes out and, you know, opens up, say, a 14-2 or a 13-3 sort of lead at the Lloyd Noble Center.
Well, let me tell you what, if Kansas State gets up on you 14-2, you got problems, because they're not a very good offensive team. I watched Kansas State last night after watching the OSU Tech game, and they beat Texas. I think it was 55-46, and they got to 55 with a late flurry. It's not a great offensive team. They're going to make it rough on Trae Young. It's going to be a grinder of a game. The problem with that is you're dealing with a crowd that is frustrated as well. And, you know, we saw that Saturday against Texas at Lloyd Noble Center. You know, the crowd's just sitting there waiting for something good to happen, and it just hardly ever did. And you can sense frustration in a building. And sometimes that carries over to the team. And another bad start would just sort of exasperate the problem. A good start, meanwhile, would really sort of take pressure off shoulders and would do a lot of good. But, you know, Kansas State, the kind of team they are, don't go counting on a 14-2 run. Maybe a 6-2 run would be, you know, after 5 minutes, if you're at 6-2, think of that as a very good sign.
Well, Oklahoma looking for any signs of life, any signs of victory. As we said, 5 o'clock Saturday against K-State in the Lloyd Noble Center, then a Tuesday night game at Baylor. 8 p.m. is the tip time on Tuesday, and then a quick turnaround, a Friday night game to end the regular season at the Lloyd Noble Center against Iowa State. Again, one of those late 8 o'clock tips. We'll have a lot more coverage of that as the weekend goes on, but be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.